Hello and welcome to our web chat on understanding and exploiting your corporate treasury stack. We're joined by Craig Jefferey, Managing Partner, Strategic Treasurer. Craig formed Strategic Treasurer in 2004 to provide corporate, educational and government entities direct access to comprehensive and current assistance with their treasury and financial process needs. He has 25 years of financial and treasury experience, including being a senior VP at Wachovia Treasury and Financial Consulting and working for other banks. Essentially, what we're going to be doing is discussing the structure and key drivers in corporate treasury technology today. Looking first at the treasury technology stack. Now, this approach is unique to Strategic Treasurer. It's something you've developed over the years, isn't it, Craig? But how does it all fit together?
Yeah, Jack. So the technology stack, or this conceptual stack, has 5 components or layers to it, and you're just breaking out the pieces. So the bottom is data. What data do you need internally? What do you need to get from external sources? And Treasury needs this for forecasting, for making payments, et cetera. The second is connectivity. So this is connecting data and transactions back into your underlying systems, which is shown in the third level of that stack. And then there's reporting, which comes out of the systems and out of the data that you have, and maybe multiple systems. And analytics, or the analysis layer, is how do you do your models, run scenarios to look at what happened, what could happen, what are different events that can take place. So each of these needs to be looked at in the context of the stack and separately. So that's how they're most closely related.
I've seen other analyses that have produced many more different layers. Why have you essentially chosen these? Does this work?
Yeah, it does. Well, and I think you've seen probably many of the ones that are technologist oriented for the the different layers of true technology that someone from information technology would love to see those components. So this is more of a conceptual technology stack. So we find it ideal for discussing with senior financial leaders to help them understand what you need to do and what you need to get out of it. Obviously, there's different layers for data architecture, system architecture that are more refined than this, but people need to get the conceptual understanding, and then there's the details that sit behind it. So that's why we show it from a conceptual standpoint.
So if we just take one of the areas, and we can break it out in many different ways, and look at your, again, unique approach of looking at the Treasury Aggregator. This is a new way of looking at how people are bringing things together. How have you developed this, and why?
This the Treasury Aggregator model, and that naming, we've referred to it as Treasury Consolidator in the past, but Treasury Aggregator is the one that fits best in our mind. And this is, for mid-sized corporate treasuries and larger, they have a range of communication needs. That connectivity layer, that second layer on the previous chart, you have to connect. You need to get information from multiple banks that comes in multiple formats. And that goes back not just to your treasury management system, but usually it's going to a reconciliation platform. Maybe some data is going to your ERP, it's going to your TMS, maybe data is going to other receivable systems as well. So you need to get a lot of data from banks, and managing that means you put an aggregator in the middle. You don't have 50 different phones to talk to 50 different banks. You get one phone or one communication system that layers that and handles the complexity of the communication, the format or language, the method of delivery, error checking. And for Treasury Aggregators, we look at it for information consolidation, which is what I just discussed. And we also look at it for payment hub functionality. So if you're sending out payments from multiple systems, how do you get that data in the right format, run your sanction screening, make sure everything's fine, isolate changes in banks so you don't have to make changes in every underlying payable system, et cetera. And then you can deliver it through a network like Swift or deliver it directly. So the benefits of a payment hub, the benefits of this multi-bank reporting all combined into one, fit at the middle. So once you get $1 billion in turnover and larger firms, you're usually finding that's when you start to see where a Treasury Aggregator functionality makes sense.
I have a difficulty in working out what should be used where. So, for example, if I have a treasury management system, and most of them claim they do most of this treasury aggregator work themselves, where do you work out that actually the problem is now too big, you need a treasury aggregator? And where do you say, oh, that's okay, you can just do it inside a TMS?
Yeah, that continuum question is a great one. When do you need a TMS, and when do you need aggregation in addition to a treasury management system? So, if you look at the far left side of the size of companies and complexity of companies, someone's dealing a $50 million turnover company, maybe dealing with a single bank, maybe a few accounts in one country. They probably don't need any of those things. They deal with their bank, they use the bank platform. The bank grabs the data, you initiate payments, all the reporting comes through there, and then maybe they do an export into some type of accounting platform. So they need very, very little. Then as you move up the scale of complexity and connectivity, you get a TMS, you're probably making host-to-host connections. And then as you scale, that's where you start to say how many payments, how many payment files, payment connections are we making? What formats, what countries, what currencies? How many systems do we have on the left side of this equation? And as you move up the scale there, in terms of payments and in terms of how many banks you're connecting to for information reporting and other sources of data, that pushes you more towards a treasury aggregator. So, the building these host-to-host connections all individually, most TMSs can do, a number of them that way. But then you reach a level of complexity that it's just too much support. It's not flexible. And usually from a TMS perspective, you're connecting just to the TMS. Now, there are a few treasury management system providers that have a separate connectivity model and would be classified as a treasury aggregator, offering both data aggregation and payment hub capabilities. So understanding where you are in the continuum helps you determine what technology is appropriate for your technology stack.
Is there a key sort of number of connections, complexity that makes you say, right, this is when I need a treasury aggregator, this is when I can get away with just a TMS or a payment hub platform?
Yeah, usually you're looking at, for a treasury aggregator, you're looking at 5 or more payment connections to 5 or more banks. And it depends on what you have on the left side, but that's just one level. 10 or more banks on information reporting, and 2 or more back-end systems, whether it's reconciliation, AP, treasury. That's where you really start need to look at, maybe you need the higher end on the continuum capabilities of a treasury aggregator.
And going forward, I'm reviewing tomorrow Citi's API app market for developers and their portal, where it seems to me that they are replacing things like the treasury aggregation. Is that something that's happening?
So API connectivity, like stuff that was originated from the PSD2 directive, can simplify a lot of connectivity. So certain banks, if you're saying I want to pull in a balance and you set up an API, it just pulls in the balance and it's a plug-in to your TMS or to another financial system. That may be a whole lot simpler than the bigger connections that go through Swift or through host to host. But depending on the volumes you have, how much data is necessary, you may find that you can start layering in APIs into your overall model. So just like it's not just host to host connectivity, it's connecting to banks directly, it's connecting to networks like Swift or eBix, and it's handling different formats. The aggregator functionality does need to include the full range of options, which would include things like APIs. Now, if everything could move to APIs instantly and they were all plugins, that would take away some of the benefits of the aggregator, but you still need things like, not just error checking, but you need sanction management, ability to control your payment files. So we see every increase in capability like XML, such as the pane format, or the CAMP messaging for information, the movement towards APIs as helping the overall process move forward, but not eliminating those.
Craig, there are some important functions inside the internal center of your diagram, like sanction screening, data validation, and message reformatting. Can you explain what's going on there? And like the APIs, are they replaceable or are they central to the Treasury Aggregator?
I think those functions need to exist. Whoever does those, it's a question of what's more efficient. So something like data validation, why does this matter to an IT person? Why does this matter to a treasurer? Is I'm getting files in. Let's say I'm getting an MT940. What do you care about? Well, the file has to balance within itself. The detailed transactions have to equal the totals, right? Maybe you want a confirmation that everything's there, everything balances, and that today's beginning balance matches yesterday's end of day balance. So you're not missing something, that the bank hasn't reported an error, because you have to rely on good information. So validation is a key component there. That's necessary for our overall control processes. Every treasurer cares about that. Message reformatting, this is an idea of Treasury can, say we need to move to this different bank in this region or another bank in another. It's important for a relationship perspective or where we're getting our capital. And then AP or some other area says we have no resources to reformat or make the changes and test and do all that for moving to another bank. So this message reformatting, making sure that I can map this to a new bank versus the existing one. You can isolate it so there's less changes that are required on the back end system. In addition, you may get lots of formats coming in XML, MT940, BAI for from different sources, and maybe you need one format going into your reconciliation platform. The aggregator can handle that.
And so, the sanction screening is really quite complex, and it changes almost daily.
It's essentially real time changes, right? And certain things are updated every day, but at least daily.
And can that be done inside a aggregator? Because there are quite a few systems that are just standalone systems to do the sanction screening alone.
Yeah, so many aggregators would perform sanction screening. So at the time it enters the system, whether it's a payment hub, it does a review, it runs the check and spits out the blacklist and the errors that are alerts for possible sanction screening. And that's before it hits the banking system and is a reportable event. So it at least stops it at that point. Now, some people run sanction screening before you load a vendor up in AP, for example. They'll run it before it's loaded. They'll run a check as a payment's going to be generated in AP, et cetera. But this putting in the aggregator means that no payment goes out the door without the sanction screening or the OFAC filtering being run against those payment files before it hits the banking system.
This is clearly a function, the Treasury Aggregator, which is going to continue. Looking forward, what would be your overall comment about Treasury technology, which Treasury Aggregator is part of it? What would be your overall comment?
Everyone recognizes that Treasury has had an increased level of expectations placed upon that function due to different levels of risk, the ability to see things. With that expectation means you have to be able to respond more rapidly. At the same time, technology has advanced greatly. What was current 10 years ago was not so current 5 years ago and is most likely very out of date today. So to meet the current needs and have a modern technology architecture and a modern technology stack, you need to think of where are you, what your needs are, and leverage the new technology so that your company can address current and emerging needs.
Current and emerging needs is actually where I think it would be good for us to look at another web chat focusing on Treasury data and how you can manage that as you go forward, and because increasingly they're getting more data from all sorts of different sources, and senior management are expecting the treasurer to take account of this as they manage the liquidity and the overall risk of the company. Thank you, Craig. Very interesting, and I look forward to our next web chat.